Everyone, welcome to the part two for the review for the final exam. Like I said in class today, the final is going to have 25 multiple choice questions, 15 short answer questions, and then some extra credit questions at the end. We're going to mostly go over oligopoly, monopolistic competition, but then there's a few of the kind of like non-market stuff and like the Bitcoin stuff that we talked about towards the end of the class. I'm not going to do the stuff we did today in class. You can check out that lecture that I posted on YouTube, and then the link to it in Canvas. So look at the study guide. Going back to the first page I kind of skipped over in class today, I'll start doing them real quick before I jump back into where we left off. So the first is what are the three key assumptions of economics and explain what they mean. This is from back in the first unit. The first is methodological individualism, and this is the idea that social phenomena are the result of individual action. That when we analyze things in economics, we're looking at individuals and how they act and how they interact with each other. We're not looking at groups overall. This gives us a better lens to try to understand human action because we're looking at the actual people involved in the action rather than trying to look at groups of people in general. The second is purposeful action, and that's just that individuals act to satisfy their wants. They have goals and they undergo these actions. They undertake these actions to try to achieve these goals. And the third is economizing behavior. So when individuals act, they consider the costs and the benefits. So they seek their desired ends with the lowest possible cost. Out of this idea of economizing behavior comes the assumption of rationality, that individuals seek to choose the best possible alternative. Now remember, that doesn't mean that they're always right, that they have perfect information and they're going to act upon it perfectly. But when they're looking between two or three alternatives, or however many alternatives, they're going to try to pick what's best for them. They're not going to try to pick the second best. Now, if they're wrong, if more information later turns out they're wrong. But in the moment, they're doing what they believe is best for them. So next question was opportunity cost, marginal analysis, and decision making. Opportunity cost is what you have to give up, what the other alternatives that you have to give up in order to undertake an action. So if you're considering going out to eat tonight for dinner, the opportunity cost is, say, going to a movie because you're not able to do both at the same time. Marginal analysis is looking at the next unit when you're looking at purchasing good or I guess undertaking action. You're not looking at, if you're comparing between two goods, buying, say, like a shirt and something to eat for dinner, you're not looking at buying all the shirts and all of it. It's just the next unit. Okay, so next, explain the assumptions of rationality and why it's important in economics. If people act irrational, that they're not going to act in the best, or in their best interest, or what they believe is their best interest, we really can't do any analysis. People don't respond to incentives properly, and they won't if they're irrational. And that's imagine people intentionally ignoring their best option, knowing that something is going to be what's best for them, and they choose something else. Don't confuse this with people choosing something, knowing that something's better for them in the long run, but choosing something in the short run that's better. In that case, that's people discounting the future heavily, that the pleasure they get in the moment is more than the pleasure they're going to get in the long run from say being healthy 10, 20 years later. They'd rather smoke that cigarette now and get that enjoyment. That's still rational. The current costs are higher than the current benefits are higher than the benefits that they would get later. But if people are irrational, if they choose the second best option, then, or third best, or even worse, then no government policy or regulation can work. You can't anticipate people's reactions, so you can't try to nudge them in the proper direction or add costs to make them switch to a different action. Next, what is the function of profit and loss in a market economy? Profit is evidence that a firm is meeting consumers' needs, so it's something that encourages them to continue. If they're producing a product that people really like, they go out and they keep buying this product, the firm is going to likely earn a profit. They're going to be doing well. That's going to encourage them to keep doing that. Maybe they offer more. Maybe they throw more research and development into that. It's going to it's going to reward them for providing what consumers need. And it gives them and other firms an incentive to reallocate resources to the highest valued uses. So if they're making a profit from something and they're making a lower profit or a loss at something else, they're going to shift more resources into that thing that's making them a profit. And on the other hand, loss discourages these inferior products and these errors from persisting. It redirects what's being used to produce these lower quality goods that aren't fulfilling consumers' needs, pushing those resources to better uses, things that consumers actually want. And now entrepreneurs who are seeking profit, they're going to try to innovate to meet the consumer's needs. So if they're going to seek profit, seek these rewards for providing consumers what they need. If they're wrong, they'll suffer a loss, and because of the strict budget constraint, they're going to be forced out of the market, or they're going to be forced to create and sell the product that that consumers actually do want. Next up is describe the problems associated with price controls. So there's 4 main things that you should focus on for this. The first is that price controls mask the real changes to economic fundamentals. So it's assuming that an increase in prices is solely due to inflation, not due to things like the cost of production increasing from there being a shortage because there's increase in the price, or if there's just actually they're running out of the raw materials. The next is that the role of profits are neglected. This ignores the fact that we just talked about, that profit is an incentive for firms to meet consumers' needs. And by these price controls reducing firms' profits, it also makes mistakes less costly. So firms that aren't providing these goods that consumers want, that aren't providing goods that consumers want, it's going to be less costly for them to continue to make those mistakes, because the goods that people truly do want that could earn firms a high profit, they're getting a lower profit from that. Next, it replaces economic competition with political competition. So here's where you have firms spending money instead of on research and development or trying to find ways to reduce the cost of these goods they're producing. Instead, you get more lobbying the government, spending money to lobby the government to try to get, say, price controls on either like the raw materials that you use in production to like lower your cost, or to to try to lower the price that that your competitors, or like it's an industry that sells a oh my god, I'm blanking.